Natasha from Pineapple&fries.com. I'm driving right now. I tried to make this video, I want to say like 7 times so far, so I'm trying to do it when I have time now. I just started making a video a few minutes ago and someone called me in the middle of it, and because I'm using my cell phone as a camera still, it interrupted the video and I'm aggravated. So anyway, so I wanted to go and talk about IVF today. I've had quite a few questions. I've been pretty open about our infertility struggles and whatnot. If you have been trying to get pregnant for 1 year or more and you're under 35, I would strongly suggest seeing an OB and getting some fertility testing done. Even get a referral to a reproductive endocrinologist, which is an RE, or whatnot, as soon as possible. I'm 30 and I just turned 30 in November. Ooh. And I'm currently pregnant with my second child. I didn't want to have kids after I hit 30, and I was actually at the point where if this last cycle we did not work, I was not going to have a second child. And sometimes I wish we had kids a little bit earlier, but you know, things happen, obviously. But I do have one son, Carter. He's almost 2. He's an IVF baby, and we are pregnant with our second IVF baby. I am 30 weeks, so that's fun. So for experience IVF wise, I have had 2 retrievals, 2 fresh transfers, and 2 frozen transfers, and I've also transferred 2 embryos at one point, and I've also had 2 DNCs due to issues from pregnancies that we've had through IVF. So I have experience with quite a few things, and all of this is within the last 3 years that I've had all of this happen. And that's Carter in the back right here. Anyway, so I'm going to try to make this as brief as I can. If you have any questions, please post them below and I will answer them. You can also, message me. If you go on Pineapple&fries.com, I believe I have a contact section, or it's pineapple&fries@gmail.com. You can email me. And I talk to people a lot about infertility stuff. It's surprising how many people have issues with infertility and don't know the first steps in, getting help, or they've had consults and they don't understand what the doctor's telling them because they're not explaining it. Some of the stuff I'm saying might not make any sense, but that's why you ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. Anyway, so we did our first cycle, and we did the retrieval in June of 2016, so it's been a little less than 3 years. And we ended up pregnant our first cycle. But pretty much what happens is, in my experience, they put me on birth control after we did all the initial testing. If you want more information on the initial testing they did, let me know. We have male factor infertility, which was our primary cause. Now it is in recurrent pregnancy loss as well, after numerous losses in between our son and this pregnancy. So we have both diagnoses now. Anyway, so they put me on birth control for about 4 weeks to kind of calm my system down, give it a break before stimulating. So I was on that. When I came off of that, they did blood work and they did an ultrasound to make sure that I was good to start stimulation drugs, and then I did. So the stim drugs are injections, and for the most part they are given in your tummy, so you can do them yourself. You don't need your spouse to do them. My husband did. I want to say out of this last 3 years, my husband's done maybe like 8 shots for me, including progesterone shots, which are done in my butt. He's done maybe 8. So you can do it yourself. Don't be scared. So let me think. Space. Alright, so I was on birth control for like 4 weeks, came off, did the ultrasound, and then did the blood work just to make sure we could start. I was on stimulation drugs for, I believe, 10 days. During those 10 days, is with my first cycle, I had a different RE than I did for the rest of my cycles. That RE had me go in for ultrasounds and blood work almost daily after day 3. So I was working 3rd shifts. I would have to have somebody come in at 5 in the morning so I could drive an hour out to get my blood work and my ultrasounds checked daily. So what they're doing is they're checking for your estrogen levels. If your estrogen levels get too high, you can overstimulate, which pretty much, let's just get basic. If you overstimulate, you'll get an abundance of fluid in your abdomen. And if it's really bad, it can be fatal apparently. But they can, take a needle and get rid of it and help you. So they try to avoid doing that. So they check your estrogen to make sure it does not get too high. And it also helps them determine what your doses for your injection meds every night. So you get called every day almost. And your meds get adjusted. I was on Gonafol F and Menopur and Lupron during my first retrieval cycle. And then after about 10 days, they told me I had a dominant follicle that was over 20 millimeters, so they ended up telling me I could trigger, which means you take another shot, and it's HCG most of the time, depending on your estrogen levels, and that will release the eggs from the walls of the follicles, and that way when they go in to retrieve them, they are able to just suck them out and they're not just stuck to the follicle. So we ended up retrieving 22 eggs my first cycle. So the stim meds are what makes your body mature a lot more eggs a lot faster than the usual one. Sometimes people mature 2 and then on a regular cycle. So I had 22. I got a report, I believe 2 or 3 days later. We ended up with 16 that actually fertilized, or 16 that were mature, 10 that fertilized, and we ended up with 4 on day 5. The best, from what I gathered, the best time to transfer is day 5 if you do a fresh transfer, and frozen obviously too. They will freeze them on day 5 or 6. And we ended up doing a fresh transfer because I did not overstimulate. And I went back. They pretty much put a thin catheter in your cervix and pushed the embryo in, and we transferred 1 embryo, which is hey ho in the back. So 10 days after, actually with the first clinic it was 7 days after my transfer, they had me come back for an HCG blood draw. My level was around 75 I believe, or 78, and then they have you come back every 48 hours a couple times just to make sure the levels are doubling appropriately. So that is the very basics. Looks like I have a sunroof. It's my window, so it looks like I have a sunroof. But that's the very basics of IVF. Very basics. The 3 embryos that were remaining after that cycle ended up being frozen. I later found out from the new clinic I went to afterwards, because the clinic I was going to originally shut down. They said the embryos from the first clinic that they froze were not as good a quality, so I ended up doing another retrieval. So I ended up doing another retrieval instead of transferring. Well, I think I did transfer one time. When was my last retrieval? My last retrieval was November of 2018. Right. No, November 2017. 2017. Yes. It was November 2017, so. Yeah, I did 1 transfer with those other embryos, and it did not work. The embryo did not stick or whatnot. So I decided to do another retrieval after that. And it's a whole story. All the cycles I've had, but I've had 1, 2, 3, 4 cycles since Carter's been born. So I've had a real fun time. Well, 3 cycles, and then we had some real fluke thing happen. But yeah, so those are other stories. But if you have any questions about IVF or, you know, infertility that, you know, it doesn't make sense or whatever, you don't understand like the embryos, you can get genetic testing and stuff too done on the embryos, and sometimes people do that. So after they do retrieval, they will send them off to get genetically tested, and they'll wait a cycle or two and do a frozen transfer with a genetically normal embryo, which will improve your chances of having a successful pregnancy. The embryo doesn't necessarily have an improved chance of sticking, but it has an improved chance of surviving after sticking. So that's one thing. And I have several friends. I have a friend around that's pregnant with her first IVF baby. She's had a couple losses, actually several, and she added an injectable blood thinner this cycle, and I believe she's 11 weeks pregnant now. So that's great. Like, I'm really excited for her. It's her first child. Sometimes you have to tweak things a little, and it helps make things work. Alright guys, so like I said, if you have any questions or anything, ask them below.